Can an ordinary genius advance or become a true genius?
Of course. Ordinary genius, a person born with, say, inherited gifts, right? And maybe to an extraordinary degree, especially in terms of memory feats, as in the case of mathematicians and scientists. Yeah, but see, so a skill is not advancement. It's not a better human being, say, by virtue of a particular skill, or let's say the angle or specific genius, school, or let's say science or art form, right? That's not true. So in other words, you can have a highly developed skill, inherited, or I guess you might say earned. In some cases, you can sharpen it at school, right? And still be a subhuman being, as we have in the case of many humans who are very advanced, even considered geniuses because of their virtuosity and their demonstrations of musical intelligence and capability or power, but they're still subhuman. So we have to be able to separate the gift that they have, or let's say the program they have, however excellent it might appear to be relative to memory, let us say, and what spiritual reality is. See? So going beyond, let's say, the idea of, let's say, artistic or ordinary conventional genius, we haven't talked about exaggerated skills in some cases. We have the Buddha realization that everyone is potentially the Buddha. In Christianity, everyone is potentially the love of Christ. See? In other schools, it's like you are potentially whatever the deity is, potentially. So as long as we agree with these native ideas that you are the elements even in potential, then anybody, including a mechanical genius, can become into line with what true genius is, where it's not you doing it, it's doing it. It's not about your ego. It's not about ego, in fact. It's more of the unconscious coming through of itself, which, allowed to do what it does, is far superior than people who are trying to do it, or who are practicing doing it. Come in.
Does ordinary genius give one, let's say, an advantage in trying to achieve true genius?
It may or may not, depends on your ego and how stuck you are with a little bit of, let's say, extraordinary ability, right? In terms of what your vanity is relative to it, what your self-mind is. That means what you're limiting yourself to be, like you're okay with, right? If it's a glamorous genius of some sort, right, in the arts or whatever, ballerina or whatever, painter, they may not want that taken away. They say, no, this is fine. I don't want to change anything because I'm getting all I need right now from it. My paintings are great, and it may, in fact, for the artist, there may be nothing that they can really do, but they say, no, they want this, and I'm being paid for it, so I'm in perfect land right now. Materially, emotionally, artistically, I'm at the top of the heap. So it's self-limitation. And the denial of going beyond that, see. And not a trace of what we have been calling infinite in the past couple of hours. Say, infinite intelligence, infinite, say, creativity, infinite energy, so to speak, say, infinite life. And we're talking about mastership, going beyond the human domain, which is true. You need to enter what is maybe called the angelic domain, where it's the light. And you have to go into the lights and feel the lights coming through you. And they carry you to places where other people don't care to go and don't dare to go. This is beyond themselves. So this is a theory, see, of a genius beyond genius. See, in creating without self, in fact, and not being the big egomaniac that many geniuses sort of become. So good, they're stuck. So big, they're stuck. so full of themselves they're stuck. See? So caught up in the glamour of their own abilities they're stuck. See? I'm saying everybody's that, but I'm saying we see that often, you know. See? Does anyone ever know enough? See? Do you know where your knowing comes from? See? So we have to see them as people who are on the path, in effect. And everything, whether you receive a Nobel Prize for science, that's a step on the path. You have to go beyond that. It doesn't make you a Buddha. It doesn't give you any realization. It doesn't give you any happiness. It doesn't bring you into the spiritual realm. So these are the limitations that are somewhat addressed indirectly in the heart of true genius.
Does true genius offer, let's say, freedom from suffering?
It can. Yeah. We're going to say that true genius has more to do with spiritual realization, even at the beginning level, a serious practice, where true genius then is balancing the world of karma with the world of dhamma. Best of both worlds. So the dhamma is checking the karma, and the karma is let's say, being tested by the dhamma. See? So that's what a good practitioner should be. But creative and open to the infinite in their own right, relative to what their particular angles and abilities warrant in their place in the earth at this time. And then having a spiritual sense that is, worthy of, let's say, recognition and remarking about, because it seems to be consistent with the creative ability. And now in this age, we see a lot more New Age Dharma, including New Age, let's say, karma, including old Dharma. Right? And so they're complementary. But there's a lot that needs to be realized rather than talked about relative to what the real Dharma is. This is a hip thing now, it's New Age. So it's business, it's big business. And so this is not about big business as such. It's about cutting through materialism and reaching an enlightenment phase of existence that you make very clear to the people who are near you. And this is about life. Not just theatrics. It's not about Hollywood as such. It's not about money even. It's about channeling something deeper. See, that can provide for you depending on your karma, or separate you from the world depending on your karma at the same time.
Is true genius recognized by the world in the same way that conventional genius is?
Perhaps. I have to use an example of this is a theory, okay? This is a theory I have. Somebody like the Dalai Lama. I'm born into something, more or less true to his purpose, that he is a pure version of what it is. So I'd say that's true then. True Dharma genius. Musicians sometimes have a true level of genius that they're born with and doesn't leave them. They don't necessarily develop it beyond a certain point, but it's good enough for them to work from. It's there. So we're talking about abstraction and theory relative to the creative intelligence that everybody's born with, which is really infinite in a sense, but its infiniteness does not, let's say, serve the purpose of advancing the race as we know it, because who's ready for going beyond themselves to begin with? They want a self. They want a great self. They don't conceive of going beyond that ordinarily. So that's extraordinary. See. So you have lamas, you have, say, creative geniuses that are in the world and doing the best they can to keep their thing going. Right? And you have more wacky types like that, was the name Dali, Salvador Dali, right? A great Spanish painter who had it all happening. It's a bizarre, little crazy, certainly a pervert of a sort, but he was proud of whatever it was. And he loved sex and perversion and every abomination that there is, He was all up to it. And you have that type. And so they don't go beyond themselves. He's more concerned about his curls and his mustache. How pretty he looked as a fool, right? Court jester. But that's what it is. Comment.
So does, I mean, conventional genius usually applies to a specific field of endeavor for, does the same hold true with true genius? Are there those kind of limitations to a specific?
Well, true genius is a big, big leap, see? That means the heart is at the same level as the mind, see? In terms of its awakenment, see? Its intelligence, its openness, and maybe even its creative endowment, see? So we're saying that a true genius can be many geniuses in one. See? We don't put a limit on it because it's like a theoretical sort of umbrella. See, to give people motivation for seeing beyond themselves as geniuses, as a certain kind of box. They're in the box of geniuses, but you know, the musicians that enter the highlight of their life in the box are not always human, right? In a certain equal sense. See? They're not wisdom peeps ordinarily. See? They don't aspire to that because they're blinded by the audiences and the money and the business. See? And they have to live up to that. See? So here we're talking about someone that doesn't have anything to live up to, see? In a sense. And we're going to use the example of Einstein. So he just did what he did, and it was his nature to do that. Curious to a fault. See? He just kept going. See? And reached the limit where he never really discovered what it was, the unified field theory to his satisfaction. Others had to come in and add to it. So he exhausted himself. Right? But he was open-minded, he was humble. You could see that in his nature. Right? Then we have another one who was also a male, who was to an extreme beyond Einstein, and that was Nikola Tesla. Right? The Serb, the crazy Serb. Right? Who had a romance with a bird. A sparrow or something. It was his love of his life. See? That was his thing. And he avoided women like the plague. Right? He was afraid of women. And you know, he's like a wacko type, but I mean, what they say, 200 years ahead of mankind or something, right? Like a true alien there. Right. See, so he didn't need what everybody else needed. His energy, his body energy, physical energy, was wrapped up here. It's a kind of mental sort of extreme. Right. He said he used to hear from the planet Venus. He was listening to planet Venus. Now we as astrologers know we can feel the vibrations of Venus once they're shown to us. We say, well, we can see that. We can even see it in our relations, even when Venus is positively aspect. We say, well, things are smooth, and then when it's square or opposite, something, let's say, bad or dark, as in the case of the negative or unconscious planets, we can see there's a little chaos there. Right? Relations don't feel as smooth and so on. So there are patterns and energies that are available to us to perceive, and this is part of it. Seeing beyond your so-called birthright is very important. I mean, including the universe into your reality is a very important step on going beyond the box of whatever you might know.
So would you consider Tesla to be a true genius?
In a way. In a way. See? There was no particular wisdom behind what he was doing, but there was like brilliant scientific, let's say, conclusions that he had. And he was a new ager in truth, because remember, this is the guy who said he had a gadget that you put in your land, and it would derive from the sun all the energy you could ever need for your whole life. He was out there. Right? That's why Edison, not so much Edison, but Westinghouse and other people wanted to squelch his whole idea, because they wouldn't make any money with this guy on the scene. Tesla wanted you to be drawing everything from the sun. He said, that's what it's for, by the way. So it's supposed to use it. And so he was advanced. And so, you know, in weaponry, I mean, he worked for the government. I mean, he was way advanced. And there's all kinds of technology that is attributed to his intelligence, his genius, which was way, way beyond everybody else in a certain way. But that was just exclusive. to function, and that's all he saw he was to do. He never seemed to be talking about anything else or looking for anything else or anybody else. It was pure. Coming.
So, is it possible that Tesla's genius would be simply ordinary for being from another planet
Could
or
be.
species?
It could be, exactly, relative. The starting point for, let's say, the real spiritual leap beyond that, scientific understanding or physics, say super physics level. Right? I mean, there's more to the mind than anything we can talk about. Right? And if we're talking about the God as creator, making beings, creating universes that are millions, hypothetically maybe even billions of years ahead of where we are, we're like particles of dust, basically. Then there's a lot of potential. That's what we need to know. Well, what is the potential of my being? What is the potential of me being here? What else can I do to learn if I have to learn to advance my intelligence or my consciousness? See, what else can I learn to do for the sake of other people? And that was built into, let's say, Tesla's intelligence when he serving mankind. And he was an apprentice of Edison, right? And they didn't get along for obvious reasons. And so that's where you see that the current wars came from, right? Westinghouse was with Tesla, and Thomas Edison had, his own support, and he was about the direct current, and Tesla came to the conclusion that it's not about the one-way current, it's really about the two-way current. And so Tesla won the contest, and everybody thanks Tesla for all the electrical wonders that they enjoy today and take for granted. You hardly ever hear the guy. That's how low-key he was. Come in.
You talk a little in the book about imitating genius. Can one imitate true genius?
Well, I don't know about the true genius. That's more of an abstract thing. It's not necessarily certain tangible results when I speak in those terms. I mean the enlightened one. Say so. See, someone who's up on the level of a wise person. That's a sage. Now there are those out here. We're not saying there aren't. Of course, that's what we can say represents the best of humankind. See.
And so would you say that the function of genius is more to inspire rather than to be imitated or emulated?
People are going to imitate everything because they must. Everything is imitated. You must. Otherwise you don't advance. You have to take that step. And just as certain traditions say, well, the teacher gives it to the student gets it and then has to go beyond the teacher and in turn become a teacher. So it's an ongoing process. In order to advance the race and advance consciousness, it has to be that way. Come in.
Does true genius require a spiritual component?
Yes. Enlightenment. Not spiritual, then it's just enlightenment, awakeness to what is real relative to the heart, what is real relative to the brain. And that includes the laws of the universe as well, because all that opens up to you as needed when the time comes. And then you go beyond that too. You don't need to learn anything. The universe starts to work through you, and it has its way with you. If you're a benign spirit, then good things come through you.